Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have so much fun because I'm going to do a VR to Robyn from Robyn's Reflections, and it's a Beetlejuice tarot tag. So I was watching this video this morning and I was laughing literally at every prompt. It is so well done. Thank you so much, Robyn, for thinking about this tag. I actually watched the sequel to Beetlejuice last weekend, and I don't want to give out any spoilers, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But the original movie, Beetlejuice, I actually enjoyed it so much. And it was probably because it was at that age in which I could really appreciate all the little nuances that really made it an enjoyable movie. And so when I saw that Robyn was uploading this video, I was really excited. I was mentally picking all of the decks that I would have chosen for the prompts as well. So let's start, because it's Showtime, a deck that feels cinematic. Now in this case, I have chosen a deck which is very similar to the one chosen by Robyn for this prompt, and it's the Tarot Pop Culture. So she's actually chosen the tarot movie, or the movie Tarot, which is an indie deck based on movies, literally. This one is, well, this is a French mass market deck by Bérengère de Moncy. It is published by Hachette. I have seen it on Amazon France, and you can also get it from other Amazon in different countries. I, however, bought this when I was in Paris. This is it's a tarot deck that has got references to a lot of pop cultures, and obviously not just movies, but also TV shows. But in my case, I really loved it because it's got so many references to Keanu Reeves movies. And so I was watching Robyn in her video, and she literally says the same. She loved that deck because there's so many references to Keanu Reeves. I don't know if you watched my latest video. It was about a tarot and oracle decks haul, but it's also about decks that I should have considered or think twice before buying, but then I did not feel sorry at all that I bought them. So I called it the Sorry Not Sorry decks. And the first deck that I show that is actually a deck based entirely on Keanu Reeves, and it's called What Would Keanu Do? And it's just an oracle deck published by Rockpool, and I can assure you it's absolutely fantastic. But let's have a look at this one. So this is indeed a French deck that has so many references to pop culture. Now the thing is that I don't know all of the references here, but in the guidebook there are explanations of all of these. And I find it really well written when it comes to the guidebook. For example, in here we got Paul Atreides from Dune. Obviously, this looks like Timothée Chalamet, so this deck has been, let's say, in the works at least after Dune 1. And if you can, I think that Dune 1 was released in 2021, at least in Australia, in December 2021. And so I'm thinking this deck was probably conceived, after that, so in 2022. So obviously some of the references here are to those movies that, if it was a sequel or if it was a trilogy, it would have had, to be set between those years. So what I'm saying is, because obviously we don't see anything from John Wick 4, but we do see John Wick in the deck. We've got Sarah Connor here, for example. I read the Proton Pack, obviously. I really Sailor Moon. So as you can see, it's also, anime and manga that is referring to, or the this is the One-Eye Willy, so it's from the Goonies, so it goes also pretty much far back in time. This is the DeLorean from Back to the Future. And I really love it because it is the kind of pop culture that really means a lot to me. So it is one of the decks that most, I believe, in my collection at least, refers back to pop culture that I actually enjoy because it's contemporary to me. So we got Daenerys Targaryen from the Game of Thrones, John Preston, the Dragon Slayer, And we've got so many references here. As I said, Eric Draven, one of my favorite movies ever. This is from The Crow. This is from the original Crow. I know that there is a remake, I think it is, from The Crow right now. You can watch it in the cinemas, and I think it's with Billy Skarsgård. Who's amazing. And then obviously we got a reference to the Matrix. Do you want the blue pill or do you want the red pill? Do you want to stay in the simulation or do you want to see what actually is around there? So really, really love this deck. There's Buffy, obviously there's Constantine, there you go with Keanu. The Hunger Games, the Kingsman as well. So it's, I think it's very inclusive, it's very vast. There's so many references there. There is John Wick, as you can see here. And I can say that this is a really beautiful card. Like, I love the fact that it's referring to the Death card. It's number 13 of the Major Arcanas. And I really like that we're thinking about John Wick in that way because, and there you go, you also have Mr. Beetlejuice. So it's absolutely fantastic that you can have a card that shows you Beetlejuice, you know, in a tag for Beetlejuice decks. So really, really, Death Note, I just absolutely loved that. I think it was either a short movie or it was like a mini series or something like that. It was from a few years ago. And so you may not, Sleepy Hollow, of course, really, really cool. Harry Potter, there's also a Neo, again from the Matrix. So I love looking at this deck. I actually did Hermione Granger. I actually did a couple of readings, Jumanji, which for me, this is actually terrifying. I've done a couple of readings with this deck for a couple of my members that when I saw it, they actually requested that for my members only readings. The Elysiometer from His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, one of my favorite trilogy of all times. It's a YA, but my goodness, I love rereading it every now and again, and I still enjoy it so much. And obviously Wednesday, or Morticia. So these are the code cards, for example, from the Suit of Pentacles, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And Moonrise Kingdom. Love this deck so, so much because of the references. I always have either a chuckle or like I'm really gasping. I'm very enthusiastic about the choices that they made for this deck. As you can see, it was rather peepish, but all of the pips have a meaning, and so I really, really enjoy it. So the second prompt is, I'm the ghost with the most, a ghoulish deck, or a deck full of ghosts. Now, I was thinking hard about this prompt because I wanted to stay on the whimsical, let's say not scary. And then I thought to myself, hang on, I mean, I don't necessarily have a ghost tarot, which is very weird considering my predilection for horror movies and horror genre in fiction. And then I thought, I do have a deck that is, it's not full of ghosts, but most of the characters on the card are now ghosts. And it's basically called the Oracle Rock. It's another French deck by the Pantellarata. And this one I saw the first time in Marine's channel, Marine from the Waves of Your Soul, and it's an absolutely gorgeous deck. It is mass market, so you can actually get it from Amazon France, which is where I got it from. And the reason why it's, I mean, not full of ghosts, but many of these characters are unfortunately not there with us anymore. These are all rockers, and well, they all passed away. So because of who they were and the music that they created as artists when they were alive, these are to me most likely to have become ghosts, and ghosts in a good way. So not to haunt people, and probably also to haunt people, but because we keep on listening to their songs, and we will forever because they're very iconic, I feel like they're still with us. So obviously not all of them have passed away, many of them have. And I have to say, this is really fantastic. I also sometimes have to go back to the guidebook. We see Helvis here, of course, and double check at least who they are, because they're not necessarily straightforward. I think that they've done a fantastic job in the resemblance of, you know, James Brown, in the resemblance of these singers. to what the actual characters or celebrities or rockers look like. Like Jim Morrison is quite iconic in this representation of the Beatles, for example. But I don't immediately recognize all of them. Hey, Freddie. Hey, Prince. So do you see what I mean? I mean, of course, it feels to us like they're still with us, but unfortunately they passed away. Not all of them, of course. Courtney is still with us. But I really love this deck. I think it's incredible, and as you can see, there are no keywords. However, it is referring back to the playing cards. So if you know how to read playing cards, you can actually use this deck for divination, not as an oracle deck, but the same way you would use you know, the playing card deck like a tarot deck. Obviously these could be seen as the suits, the minor suits of a tarot deck. So for example, the suit of hearts is the suit of water, so the suit of cups, and so on and so forth. And that is a way to read them. But if you want, and I'm just going to show you because we got Michael Jackson here. So in the guidebook, you can actually, so let's see, for Michael Jackson, we're looking at, oh no, I need to go back. So here we are. Michael, where are you? There you go. So Michael Jackson with confronting. So confronting, obviously referring to many things that pertain to the legend, but also the real life of Michael Jackson. And then you have a little bit of a description. This one is a quote that he said. And then obviously I'm not going to translate this is in French. You can still enjoy this deck even if you don't speak French, because there's not a lot, let's say, to translate. And by using Google Translate, it's actually rather accessible. So I believe that this deck and many other decks that have been produced in different languages than English are actually quite accessible by the English world as well. But in any case, this is definitely, hey Tupac. So this is definitely my choice for I'm the ghost with the most, because it is a deck that unfortunately is now full of ghosts. So the next prompt is, I myself am strange and unusual, a deck that's weird but lovable. I have a lot of weird decks. Many of them are not lovable. So I decided to go with this one because I haven't shown this deck in a while, and I honestly don't see this deck much when it comes to social media. This is an Italian deck by the publishing company Dal Negro, and it's called Il Tarocco Bizzarro di Franco Bruna. So Franco Bruna is the creator of this deck. Tarocco obviously means tarot deck, and bizzarro is an adjective that in Italian it can actually mean weird and lovable at the same time. It's not exactly lovable, but it's not a bad weird, is a whimsical kind of weird. It's the weird that makes you laugh, or at least it takes you by surprise. Let's put it this way. Personally, I think that the images on this deck are also lovable, and therefore this is my pick for this prompt. It's a very old deck. I don't remember. Let's see if I can find some year. No, this is the year in which the author was born, but I want to find the year in which this deck has been published. And let's see. Nope, not here. Okay, I cannot find it, but in any case, it is not a recent deck by all means. It's probably 30 years old. It could be more, could be less. Thankfully it does come with, I didn't even notice, but it comes with the translation of the titles at the bottom. So obviously Il Penduto is the hanged one. I don't know, it's all of these cards, whether it's because of the expression on the faces of the characters, but it could also be because of the symbols on the cards, like you can see faces here just on the ground like that in the death card, or you know, because of the way in which this monkey is literally pooping coins on top of the other monkey in the Wheel of Fortune, or this is the Strength card. The Pope, the Emperor. See, it's really whimsical for me. It is bizarre. It is weird. This is the Lover's card. I really love this. The Star card, the Hermit card, which is, you know, a person with a snail exoskeleton. What's this called? The house, a little house of the snail? I don't know. So I really like it. It's very funny, very whimsical, makes you laugh when you look at the cards. Look at the moon card. Even the devil card is actually quite whimsical and funny, and so I really enjoy this. And then we're looking at, obviously it is a peepish deck because it's also based on the Italian decks, let's say the regional playing cards decks that we can find, one different from the other in every region of Italy. So this is the suit of wands. It's very peepish, but I did know about it and I kind of expected that. Even you may decide to read it like in the same way you will read a Marseille, so that would be completely acceptable. I have to say though, even though of course we're looking at peepish minors, I don't feel like they're lazy at all, because this is literally, well, not the lizard, not the snake. So there's always this kind of whimsical element even in the peeps. And I really appreciate that. I mean, when we're looking at decks that have been, let's say, derived by a Marseille or a plain decks tradition, obviously we're not looking at, let's say, scenic minors, but I'm completely fine with the way in which they depicted them because they're actually quite nice. They're not lazy, they're beautiful, and I really appreciate them. So this is, as I said, for many reasons, this is one of the most bizarre decks that I've got in my collection. You can see even in the suit of coins, for example, you have small faces inside the coins, and it changes from card to card, so it's actually quite funny. So really loving this deck. So the next prompt is, my whole life is a dark room, a deck that's photographic or a deck that feels like you're looking into a photo. I've actually chosen two decks for this prompt simply because they go so very well together. It's the Somnia Tarot by Nicholas Bruno and the Wayfarer, which is not necessarily an oracle deck. It is actually conceived as a writer's prompts kind of deck, but the images on this deck, which is very small, but I don't mind. I would have loved for this deck to have at least 40 cards. It would have been absolutely amazing, but I find that it works really well, not just with the photos or the images on the cards, but also because of the prompts at the bottom of the cards. And a few of you, when I talk about this deck, ask me where to find it. I used to have a link, an Amazon link to this deck. I checked the last time and it was not available anymore. This doesn't mean that it's out of print or out of stock from resellers. I think that you can still find it if you look for it, but it may be difficult to look for it because Wayfarer, and it's not an oracle deck, so you can't Google Wayfarer Oracle or something like that. So you need to be patient. One thing that I can tell you that may help is the publisher. So this is the name of the press. It's Pardalotti Press. So this could help if you want to Google this deck. It may actually help to fill in the publisher. Now let me just zoom in because then we can see the cards a bit better. I should have done that before. So this is a very photographic deck. Obviously, I'm referring to the Somnia Tarot. It is a 100% photographic deck, and as a matter of fact, Nicholas Bruno is a photographer, quite renowned. This deck is absolutely amazing. I really love it. I must say that at the beginning I hesitated in purchasing it simply because I do suffer from claustrophobia, quite pronounced at times. Let's say it comes and goes, depending on the situation. But what happens is that there's a lot of these characters, you know, in the cards, in the photos actually, that are completely covered in a shroud, like you can see in the judgment card, in this case this character here. And in some cases they also have a rope around their necks, which is very triggering for me, and it really felt like I could not cope with this deck. I couldn't handle it. And then I kept on seeing people talking about the deck when it got released, and I really loved it. And I, as you know, having been a photographer, also as a professional photographer or a professional documentary producer, obviously this came to me as something like a challenge. I really wanted to challenge myself and see whether I can actually look at these cards and work with them. And I just, I finally convinced myself. I got the deck in and it was a fantastic surprise. Yes, there's a few cards that actually are still a little bit triggering for me, but the more I use this deck, the more I get acquainted with it, and I find it incredibly deep. And I would say deep, dark, and dangerous, in the sense that this is one of the decks that is definitely not a hug deck. You can see that for yourself. I mean, if you look at the images, obviously we're not talking a hard deck here, but it's one of those decks that is incredibly potent. And I absolutely love the readings that I can do with this deck, which are mostly readings from myself. Unless someone actually requests this deck, I will never, propose it, because I know what the, let's say, the general reading or the general vibes of the readings can be. So I really love pairing it with this oracle, or this deck, which is not necessarily an oracle deck. As you can see, it's just as dark, but it adds that magical element to the reading, which I really appreciate. And as I was saying, the sentences at the bottom are really evocative, only transform between the 2 of coins and the 7 of coins. So these 2 decks are my choice for the prompt. My whole life is a dark room. So the next prompt is nice fucking model. Details, details, details. A deck that shines in details. I have to say there were a few decks that came to mind when choosing one for this prompt, but then I decided to settle for this deck, which is the Raincoast Tarot by Christoph James. And this is actually I think it's called the Light or Lighter edition. And the reason why it's called the Light or Lighter edition is because the original edition of this deck was published with black borders. And there's another edition, which is the borderless edition. I chose this one because just as much as in the darkness of Light Tarot, the white borders seem to be brightening up the images on the cards, and effectively they end up giving the deck a whole different vibe. By comparing this deck with the original black bordered edition, I feel the same. I feel like even though the colors, I believe they're actually the same, there is a different sense, a different vibe, a different energy to the cards, and it does feel like it's a bit brighter when it comes to the general energy. But this deck is full of details. I mean, each and every one of these cards has got so many details to focus on, and I can promise you the experience is incredibly rewarding, because you can choose to focus on the traditional meaning of the deck or the cards, so the 9 of Pentacles, of course, but then you can also choose to zoom in into the details of the deck. And when I talk about these cards, I also reflect on the fact that the fact that we see some kind of a dark and round shape here at the bottom, it makes me think like you're actually looking through a binocular. So you're actually zooming in into the scenes that were at play when when the creator was thinking about this specific card, the 2 of Pentacles, for example, and so on and so forth. And they're not in all of the cards, but I really like it. And I think they might be just on the minors and not on the majors, because we don't see it in the Sun card, but we do see it in the 2 of Cups. And let me see, for example, here there's the Queen of Candles, which is possibly also through a lens, a binocular lens. But it is a core card. The other core card does not have it, so maybe it's just the minors from 1 to 10. I don't know. There you go, we have it again. In any case, it is such an interesting deck. It is full of details. As I said, you can choose whether you want to focus on these details or not. I personally, when I want to meditate, this is one of the decks that I focus on. And ironically, I end up not taking into consideration the meaning, the traditional meaning of the card at all, because there is so much to think about when you look at the images in this deck, that you can literally just choose to ignore, that this is the Three of Pentacles and so on and so forth. It is one of those decks that unless someone actually requests, I will not use it for a reading, simply because I don't think that when it comes to divination, this is probably one of the decks that brings up some kind of shadow or dark work related energy, which is, unless I said it's requested, it's not something I would just, to core present to a client coming in for a reading. But in any case, it is full of details and I just absolutely love it because of that. And the next prompt is, I don't think we survived the crash. A deck that brings the harsh truth into the light. Now, in this case, I actually reached out for a deck that I bought recently, or let's say just before I went overseas on a vacation, and it's this one here, which is a very whimsical deck, and I'm just gonna show you the title. Sorry, there you go. So this is the Arcane Bullshit Oracle. It's an Oracle deck, but it's a kind of a strange deck in the sense that you can use it as an oracle deck, you can use it for divination, you can use it for any kind of let's say whimsical kind of practice that you adopt in your tarot practice itself. Many of these cards are really over the top. That's the reason why I think that it brings out the harsh truth in the sense that it forces you with a very strong, powerful, sometimes even triggering image to reflect and ponder about the truth that is coming out. So hanging that, probably not. You know what I mean? It's one of those decks that by being over the top, by being really almost outrageous, it is actually very talkative, it's very communicative, it really makes you talk a lot about the cards. You can stay there and talk about them for as long as you need to. It does not shy away from being, as I say, outrageous, in your face. This is really in your face kind of deck. I love it for it because there's a lot of cards that actually, let's say, they really give you the possibility to go overboard. They really give you the possibility to dig deeper than other decks, because you feel like it's okay to do so by focusing on these images, by allowing yourself to not be constrained by some kind of rules of society. This one is definitely not concerning itself with any kind of society's rule. I mean, if you look at the cards, obviously in some cases I cannot even pronounce them out loud, but I mean, if you look at these cards, in some cases it can also be offensive, and I understand that. So as I said, many of these ones will be triggering, many of those ones could also be offensive, but many of these are actually whimsical. If you look at this card, this is the coffin, so that's fine. We start with a coffin full of tacos, and I can see the tacos here, but the tacos are full of snakes. So there's this association which is completely random and very powerful, but at the same time funny. It's not funny haha, but it's also sometimes a funny ew kind of funny, like a gross kind of funny. And granted, this is probably not everyone's cup of tea, and I completely understand that, but this is one of the decks that I actually need to do some work with, and I allow myself for the 15 minutes, 20 minutes that I am in the company of this deck, I allow myself to go there. Yes, to go there. I love this card because at the beginning I thought it was a person covered in deck, but this is actually a bunch of cats posing as a woman, because this is actually a deck wearing a mask of a woman. And I found this absolutely hilarious. I mean, it's not just outrageous. I really think, what goes on in the person that actually that creates these cards. Future not found, error 404, absolutely gorgeous, the wolves instead of the fingertips. I really, there's something to these cards that really makes you go either or no, just put this deck away. I really don't want to keep on looking at these cards, or oh my goodness, let's have a look at all of the cards because I think that we're going somewhere here. So it's not for everyone, as I said, but this is really a powerful deck for me. I mean, I'm just gonna, you know, leave you with this card, which is absolutely outrageous, but at the same time, very, very symbolic, I would say. So the next prompt is, and you left Beetlejuice out and you didn't put him back. A deck that can get a little out of pocket sometimes. And I have to say, I have a few decks for this prompt as well, but I was thinking about something that can go well when, so the concept here for me is like when you do a quick reading, you can, you know, keep it within a certain parameter, let's say, but when you let it go, then it goes out of hand. And I've decided to pick two decks simply because this is the Zombie Tarot, which is a beloved deck of mine. And by the way, let me just say, I feel like because there are Halloween decorations out in the shops, I'm actually allowed to purchase them. They wouldn't be out if they didn't think that it was okay for people to actually start buying Halloween decorations. As I said in another video, I am not sorry about buying Halloween decorations, and it's not even the half of September, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to put them out yet. I am just, you know, hoarding them. I'm hoarding Halloween decorations, which is absolutely fine. We're all fine. We're all absolutely fine. So I am going to pair this tarot deck up with an oracle deck that I think pairs up really, really well. And it's the Oracle of Oddities by Claire Goodchild. And I know that there's a few editions of this deck around. This is the 3rd edition of this deck all put together. But I also know that there's an Oracle of, a Memento Mori Lenormand / Oracle deck that I would love to have as well. It is an indie edition. This is indie as well. However, the tarot deck, which is called the Antique Anatomy Tarot, is actually has been picked up mass market. I really love all of her decks. I think that they're very intuitive, but at the same time very talkative. They really resonate. There is so much you can read out of the cards. What happens is that when you put these two cards together, and let's say when you rein it in, when you can actually monitor or control the cards, you have some really deep readings because there is a similarity when it comes to the elements in the cards. Of course, we're looking at the Zombie Tarot, which is most of the time exposing, you know, brains and bones and flesh and blood and gore and everything. And you're also looking at the same kind of elements into the Oracle of Oddities. So there's that similarity that can, at the beginning at least, create this bridge between the cards. But at the same time, I feel like when you don't necessarily focus on the card and you actually let it go, or you let both of these decks do their thing, what you get is that they get out of hand, they get out of pocket, and you need to rein them in. You need to be very careful about what I tell you, because for example here I was talking about the cards, but I wasn't necessarily focusing about the combos that I was pulling, and we got sorry, but it makes me laugh. I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but it makes me laugh that I pulled the Joy card from the Oracle together with the 10 of Swords and the 3 of Swords. If there's any combination of cards from a tarot deck that really does not spell joy in any case whatsoever, is the 3 of Swords and the 10 of Swords. And yet this is what you get. So as you can see, it can get out of pocket if you don't keep your eyes on it. It feels really whimsical at times because of the particular elements that you can find in the tarot deck and the Zombie Tarot, but at the same time I feel that I can get a balanced reading thanks to the Oracle cards. So I'm really enjoying these two together. I use them all the time. It is very weird, and sometimes I just have to explain my choice. I don't necessarily use it again for clients. It's also because most of the time when I combine a tarot and an oracle deck, it's for, let's say, journaling or for meditation, in any case something related to personal practice rather than divination practice for others. but it is very whimsical. I love these two together and I am thoroughly enjoying this. So this was my choice for the last prompt. Again, I had so much fun filming this, so thank you, Robyn, so much, because it was such an amazing tag, really well thought. I absolutely loved the prompts, and I hope that there will be more people picking this up, because it will be a lot of fun to watch all of the videos. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already for more content. But for now, have a great day.